So with the Game Pass bag in hand, the so-called talk of cannibalization of sales has actually faded into the ether. You can't find anybody that's serious that would be saying stuff like this. It's always been about the game's differential. And apparently, the developers over at Kepler are now celebrating that Expedition 33, Clair Obscur, has now sold over 2 million copies. A very interesting realization in the gaming industry right now. So, for all this while, people had gotten away with this lie, right? That Game Pass cannibalizes sales. I now realize that even I myself, when I talked about cannibalization, I missed a very important and critical piece of the conversation, which is a calculator. And I apologize. I should know better. But, we miss things, and sometimes, we're not paying attention. So if you've now sold 2 million units of your game, and your sale price was averaging about $45 to $50, depending on where people buy it, right? You have now made $90 million in sales, or more, or maybe a little less. When you put your fees out there, 4% to Epic Games for using their engine, 30% for platform holders, and then your development cost and such, that number is going to look very different. It's going to look much less. However, someone bought a ton more copies of your game. That person was Phil, the Spencer guy. So he showed up with a bag and said, hey, I'd love for you guys to put your game on Game Pass. And you guys said, all right, Phil, if you want us to put our game on Game Pass, which if it's on the subscription service, those people who play it may or may not buy our games, we want you to guarantee that you're going to give us X dollars now, and we can put our game on Game Pass on launch day. So Phil said, sure. Undisclosed amount. We don't know how much it is, but the number would have amounted to a certain number of copies, which would then have added to the coffers of this developer and take care of some of the extra costs that they may be benefiting. You know what's crazy about Game Pass too, ladies and gentlemen, is whatever bag that Phil Spencer may have actually afforded these guys, you know what I mean, in terms of a concession or a fee, if their lawyers and accountants were smart, that fee would be free from the 30% revenue and the Epic Games 4% revenue and all the other things, because Epic wants, and they stated clearly that you need to basically pay that 4% after reaching 1 million in sales for Unreal Engine license use. No royalties are due until the first $1 million in lifetime gross product revenue. Huh. Now, they could also have bought the Unreal Engine seats if they were earning that much, but that's probably going to be done when they move into their next project. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I do know about the Unreal Engine royalty thing. And if they had gotten a bag during development, if they had gotten a bag somewhere during, the marketing phase, that bag is just a concession of some kind. Now, maybe there are some finer details that Epic Games charges them, in terms of, you received money for a deal over here, but I don't think Epic Games actually does that. But I may be wrong, right? I may be wrong. In fact, in the Unreal Engine community at the time, they were talking about this, and this person said, I suddenly came to shock when the phrase royalties are waived to $1 million in gross revenue. Now, I'm making nothing off of what I'm developing or wish to develop. Forgive me, I'm new to the adult world, and with larger phrases like royalties are waived. What does that actually mean? Does this mean my in-house business, has to hand over $1 million for a release? Or is it like a cut, 10 to 20% revenue? What if I can't make $1 million? Or, I'm just a stupid 18-year-old. And someone said and replied and said, there used to be a much lower ceiling where you need to start paying royalties with much lower revenue. Now you pay nothing unless you make at least 1 million, after which you pay 5% of whatever you make above that threshold in gross revenue of the game. So, again, if I were a smart accountant and a smart legal analyst who was looking at this, we'd package this thing differently. We could do it in terms of profit sharing. So let's say, all right, instead of giving me the bag directly, Xbox, why not discount every copy that is sold up to that amount of what you were going to give me and remove the 30% cost? So now when I pay Epic their 5%, that's all I pay per cost of copies sold on your platform. We could run it that way. We could do a half and half. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how business works. A lot of people are probably over there sitting and talking about, oh, Xbox cannibalizes. None of them are actually looking at the potential and the possibility in terms of what's going down underneath. It's interesting. It's interesting that this is all working out for the developer. And again, like I said, that bag seems to be separate from this 2 million units that they've sold. They set themselves up for success by making a solid game, and they've been set up for success by partnering with a developer-friendly, consumer-friendly publishing platform. I bet you the developers over, right? The developers over at Shift Up, Stellar Blade's developers, I bet you they would like to have this particular situation. Because this game has sold in 12 days more copies in comparison to what was analyzed to have sold for Stellar Blade. If you look at Stellar Blade sales, let me see. Sold over 1 million units. 10 months ago. When did the game launch? So 10 months ago, Stellar Blade. Game launched in April. So about a year ago. Right? So within its first few weeks, first few months, it has sold about 1 million or so units. There was an analysis that was done that showed it has sold about 2 million units. There it is. This was 3 weeks ago. Stellar Blade reaches 2 million units sold. February of 2025. Estimation of 2.5 million PS5 units and 1.4 PC by the end of 2025. This is what's actually on the Stellar Blade subreddit. This is done by businesspost.co.kr. That's where they're getting this article from. This is a Korean, we can translate this. This is a Korean news site. So this is based on Shift Up's, business stuff. And it's going to translate here in a bit, but I just wanted to make sure that we showed the source. So if this is what they're reporting after a year, right, in terms of a bag, then their ROI has been much slower than the ROI for the developers over here at Kepler Interactive. And believe you me, what's crazy is if within a year they continue to maintain access to other parts of the market, then by default, they're going to really put up a strong competition against Shift Up because their money is already in. Because Shift Up got a bag from PlayStation, yes. I mean, this is basically judged by Phil Rosenberg's interview. Let me go ahead and show you guys so you don't sound like making that stuff up. They worked with games like, Stray, Genshin Impact, Black Myth Wukong, and Stellar Blade, which was already previously announced, just like Wukong, to be coming to Xbox. And they decided to go a different route. So, you judge for yourself. Or let the industry and let the gaming scene judge for itself to see how this thing actually lands. But this game has basically surprised a lot of people. It came out close to an Oblivion game too. Can you imagine that? And it's become basically a fan favorite at this point in time. Talk to me in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Peace out.